It's about being good stewards of our tax dollars, everybody's tax dollars, not just those who want something or those who don't want something.
Welcome to another episode of the Community Broadband Bits podcast. I'm Christopher Mitchell at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, and a little bit self-aware that I'm in a room of people walking around here at the Opryland. We are at Fiber Connect, and I finally have an opportunity in person to do an interview with Heather Mills, who is the Vice President for Grants and Fund Making Fun. I ran out of steam there.
Good, you got it mostly.
Grants and fundraising opportunities.
Grant and funding strategies.
Grant and funding strategies.
You got it.
Yeah. So, and when we're in person, we get to have a little bit more fun with these intros.
Yeah.
So, Heather, I think you, and let me just embarrass you for a second, but I feel like you're one of the secrets behind CTC, in that everyone knows Joanne's name, and everyone knows that CTC does a ton of work, from working with states to cities to counties to all kinds of things. Wouldn't surprise me if at one point you had a contract to develop a broadband plan for Mars. And I feel like you're often behind the scenes holding things together. You've got an incredibly talented staff, but you're the one that's not always out there on the road talking about CTC.
But more and more so. And I'll tell you, the Mars contract was complicated. It was so dusty.
Yeah.
I feel really lucky to work for such a wonderful company. I feel like I have purpose, and I am who I am today because of the people that I work with. They really are fantastic.
We all know that Joanne's a monster behind closed doors.
No, she is not. She's a great mentor and a wonderful friend, and I'm lucky to have that. Yeah.
So I'm curious, we're going to start by you telling me that I'm wrong about a lot of the things I've been saying, or at least that I have the wrong perspective.
Okay.
As we have people are coming by with wheeled suitcases. So we'll see how this all turns out. Usually it's just a nice little pleasant background noise. I just always like that people are staring at us.
With microphones.
Right.
What's going on?
Big microphones. You got to have the big microphones. So I've been, and Kim is here. She just stepped away from the table for a second. But Kim McKinley's here. Her, me, several other people have been talking about how BEAD is the most complicated, onerous broadband program that the United States government has devised. And you, if I was to be as accurate as I could be, basically said, get over it. This is important stuff. We have to make sure that we have the right qualifications.
This is not an emergency program. This is our tax dollars, infrastructure dollars.
A lot of them.
And the team at NTIA, the team with they've designed this to be a thing where they're trying to be as responsible as possible with our tax dollars. It is a planning process and then an implementation process. So, yeah, get over it.
So I love it. And first of all, one of the things I love about, and I feel like hopefully you're going to be more direct. Joanne, when we're having a drink, Joanne will tell me to my face that I'm totally wrong. And then when I put her on a microphone, she tries to be nice to me. I don't want you to be nice to me. I want you to tell me that I'm wrong. So let's go through this for a second, because I feel like one of the things that I'm seeing is what you said. I think that these people in NTIA are doing the best they can to try to make sure that they're the best steward of public dollars.
Yes. I
don't know that they're going to have that effect, unfortunately. I don't think a letter of credit is really going to change, the number of high quality ISPs that perform.
Right. So you've brought up. You brought up something that should be called the irrevocable letter of credit, which is a very different product than a letter of credit.
And you're one of the only people that could tell me that. Most people don't even know.
I think that we'll see some refinements to that. There has been much pushback, as I understand it, about that particular requirement in BEAD and middle mile in general, because it sort of it could set a dividing line. Overall, so that we should be getting clarification about that. There has been discussion, as I understand it, but for everyone's edification, an irrevocable letter of credit is not a letter of credit specifically. It requires the bank to basically set aside the money that you're asking for. Maybe it's $10 million, maybe it's $20 million, maybe it's $100 million. They can't invest that money. So you are paying a premium for them to not make money on investing that money. And oftentimes they'll do the calculation based on what they project those losses could be. So it could be a very expensive endeavor.
Especially in a time of rapidly changing interest rates.
And for anyone who went through the RDOF process, they know exactly what I'm talking about. What's nice about the Middle Mile program is it's a scalable thing. As you make your way through the implementation process, you can reduce the overall requirements for levels of money set aside with the ILOC. But I don't recall specifically. Having 3 NOFOs issued at the same time was incredibly overwhelming.
Right.
So sometimes I mix up the various requirements in my head, but I don't recall specifically for BEAD how that was outlined in the applications. And to a particular extent, I think the states will have to, given the guardrails that were set up in BEAD, design that program appropriately for them.
So I just wanted to get on the record here on the Broadband Bits podcast, because this was something that I thought was a real gem in the Connect This show. Connect This. Kim's giving me that look here, which is an amazing show that everyone should watch every minute of. But in it, we had on an ISP from North Carolina, Alan Fitzpatrick. Alan runs a wireless ISP, and it's a wired and wireless ISP. So Alan Fitzpatrick with Open Broadband had applied for a great grant for this part of North Carolina. And he ultimately was denied because of this letter of credit issue, even though the company is doing terrific and the people in that area haven't been served. Meanwhile, his company has gone on to continue doing great things. And I feel like the FCC has a history of using this letter of credit as like a proxy for whether a company is solid and not at risk of default. And I think, in this, we talked about this a little bit last night in other contexts, but I feel like the government, state and federal governments, are too risk averse when it comes to being worried about defaults. I think one of the things that I would say is that in response to this is because I think you're saying
it's our tax dollars, Chris.
I know that it's right, but here's the thing, right? So our tax dollars will be used to put fiber in the ground or steel strand on poles, and if a company goes default, we'll still have those assets unless they really screw it up. So that's where it strikes me the federal government should invest more in making sure that there are good network engineering, so that whoever ends up buying it on a fire sale price after that company goes default, we'll still have those assets and people will still be served.
Sure. I guess there's a little bit of, a quality concern too, like from a very high level. It's our tax dollars. I want them to be as particular as possible. And yes, it is very frustrating when you put all that level of effort into applications that don't get funded for various reasons. A lot of the time, these days, it's because those programs are oversubscribed, and any reason that the agency has to say no could creep up. So that is why it is more important than ever. If you don't think that you can meet the guidelines and the specifics and check all of the boxes and you have questions about those things, that as an applicant you are reaching out either to the qualified consultant that I hope you've hired to help you even in just the side, advice area.
Qualified.
Or directly
to... Qualified consultant.
Qualified. Or directly to the agency themselves to have a conversation about why you didn't or why you can't or why you don't think you need to. That's really important. Checking all of the boxes in a grant application is specifically probably the most important thing that you can do as you're going through and understanding whether or not you can submit the application.
Right. Now, the issue of labor is another major one that comes up. And here, I'm curious, because you have more visibility into states, I feel like, with the work that you do. And I feel like you're kind of on both sides of this, where you're helping states to develop these programs and making sure that we're not using taxpayer dollars to push down wages with unscrupulous actors that are trying to get money. At the same time, ISPs that do have good labor relations, I feel like get caught in the middle of a deeply flawed federal approach, Davis-Bacon, to how they actually can implement this and follow the rules. And I don't know if you feel that way. When I hear from ISPs, a lot of times I'll hear just that, when they throw out the kind of wages they're expected to pay, it's out of line with what people actually make when good jobs in these rural areas. At least that's what. So I mean,
What do you mean? You mean the wages are too low, or the wages are too
the
high?
wages are too high. So for instance, like my did you worked on BTOP stuff?
Yes.
So I remember Reedsburg, Wisconsin, when I had spoken with them. Like they're in a situation where they were looking the federal government was expecting them to pay construction wages out of Madison for this work that is done in a rural part of Wisconsin and even less specialized work. And they were really frustrated because they were like, we can't pay this. Like it's not only is it a problem for the model that we try to get the money for, and obviously, like, I think you've run into this enough that that many people submit these applications without knowing what it looks like to comply with Davis-Bacon.
Yeah, I would say that is probably one of the most important pieces. Understanding what you're getting yourself into as you're approaching these applications is really important. I don't have a particular opinion about whether a wage is too high or too low there. That is something that is out of my hands, out of your hands even. I do think
you
it's
don't know
important.
my power.
I do think it's important to pay a living wage to people, a good wage and what they're worth. But when you're approaching an application, understanding all of those things is pretty important. And if you're going to spend the time and energy from your staff to put together an application and you don't understand what your overall obligations are, that's a problem.
Don't do something halfway.
Don't
really commit to it.
You are essentially asking the grant-making agency to be an investor in your project. That means you need to treat them like an investor, and you have to answer to them as well.
Right.
That is the framework that I hope everyone thinks about. You're not entitled to grant money just because you filled out an application. You are lining up against all of the other applicants, and most of these applications coming forward here from NTIA, these are merit applications, which means that you have to make sure you go through and understand what the scoring process is. And if you don't understand what the scoring process is, you've really handicapped yourself, because that should guide you in how you scope out the work and the approach for your application overall.
And every state will have a different scoring process, most likely.
Probably. Some will simply utilize the programs that they already have in place and maybe make a few augmentations here and there to fall in line with the requirements of the BEAD program. Some may establish whole new programs as well. Yeah.
So another issue is the permitting, which I think you understand far better than I do. But it seems like BEAD requires a higher level of permitting than we've seen in other projects in terms of environmental review. Is that not right? Am I just collapsing two things together?
I think what you're focusing on is a requirement for a discussion in the application of the climate resilience. That's very different than
I was going to come to that next. I was
assessment.
thinking of it separately.
Yeah.
I had thought, and this is where I get a little bit confused. I mean, because I feel like people project onto me an understanding of these programs that you actually have, and I'm always uncomfortable with it because I really just fake it. And so I had thought like there was a level of environmental review that was required for even just attaching to existing poles if you're building.
The NEPA process, which is the National Environmental Preservation Act, and the
You can laugh at me. It's okay.
and
Others
the
do.
Section 106, which is the National Historic Preservation Act as well. Anytime you put a shovel in the ground with federal money, you have to go through the NEPA and Section 106 process.
When you say shovel in the ground, like
Before you start digging.
No, I understand that. But even if you're not digging, you still have
Correct.
to go through that.
The-
So you're just using it
I'm being-
metaphorically,
I'm-
but literally, if you're doing a project.
Before you start that project,
Right,
you
okay.
have to get clearance to go ahead. And it's about due diligence. It's about making sure that you're not going to, ramshod your way through a wetland area that has, protected species maybe living in it, like
Right.
turtles or something.
Sure.
And to make sure that, you're taking care of our land, our country.
Right. Charismatic microfauna.
But there's a difference between a discussion in an application about climate resilience and the NEPA process or the SHPO, I think, is State Historical Preservation Officer contact. For any application that we put together for our clients, we generally do, I'm going to call it a preliminary environmental report, where we go through, and it doesn't take us very long to do it. And it's one of the last things that we do once we've got a solid statement of work, because I've got lots of clients who are probably chuckling as they listen to me talk, who like to change their mind about small details at the very end, which affects an entire application.
I remodel my home constantly,
Right.
and changing your mind at the last second is the best part about being in charge of something.
Sure, except it causes the people who are doing the work to stay up all night on the night that something is due to make sure that it gets done.
Yep.
Or the night before something is due. So those changes trickle down through the entire application. But so we typically put together what I would say is the basis for an environmental assessment. Understand that almost any broadband project is going to be what is known as categorically excluded in certain ways from a number of those requirements, because if you're going aerial, you're not really on existing poles, you're not really impacting the environment at all. It's regular work. And most of the time when you're installing underground, you're direct boring or trenching in a way that is not going to meet a level of criteria for any state or even the federal government to say, we're disturbing so much ground that we have to tell you about it.
Even in California?
California is a different story.
Okay.
That's a whole other.
I just wanted to you don't have to go into it. I just wanted to make sure, because
every state is different. Let me put it that way.
Sure, every state is different. You have the private right of action perhaps might be a different issue in California.
Yeah. But we're talking about federal grants. So
sure.
In this case, with the climate resilience question, what they're particularly asking is for applicants to explore, hey, what could happen what's common? Do you get hurricanes? Do you have wildfires? Do you have earthquakes? If we install this, if we invest, this money with you, what would happen if something went wrong? What would happen if a tornado came around and wiped out all of the poles that have your infrastructure on it? What happens then?
Well, FEMA takes care of it. Boom, I'm done.
So it's an exploration of that. It's more about documenting and checking a box, if you will, of, okay, so we live in Northern California. I'll use Northern California, and there were absolutely wildfires that came through here before. Here's, what we plan around that potential and how we will, come back from that if needed. That's what they're talking about.
Right.
And there is specific guidance in the application guidance about how to answer that question in particular, and they give you prompts and stuff. So it's not like you're unguided, and it shouldn't be looked at as this mountainous thing that you have to climb and put a flag on top of. It's a discussion.
And hopefully states will make this more clear, right? Because I think some people are looking at the BEAD rules and they're like, I don't really know how to deal with this. I was like, okay, well, you don't have to deal with that. The states are dealing with the BEAD guidance. They're going to develop programs that you will then, and guidance that you'll follow.
Sure.
I have to say that when it comes to climate resilience type stuff, like, there's nothing you can do in a lot of these cases, right? I mean, I just think about, like...
Right, that's exactly why I say, like, it's a discussion. Like,
Right.
they don't expect you to solve the environmental issues that lead to...
Because the fires are a melting conduit, as I understand it.
Correct.
It's not like we're going to go, we'll just go 30 feet underground.
It's about a due diligence exercise, if you will, of documenting what could happen.
And that you're prepared for it.
And that you're prepared for it. And that's why people shouldn't be lighting their hair on fire over those sorts of things. Is it a little extra effort to have that discussion? Yeah. But again, these are our tax dollars. They want to understand that you've thought through these things and that you understand what you're getting yourself into.
Now, the issue that I have with some of these issues all combined is that I feel like while there is, again, it's this sense of we want to have the due diligence, we want to have the best providers move forward. I just think a lot about, and I don't know if you were involved with Santa Cruz and Cruzio, the ISP there. They were looking at a public-private partnership, and I was really excited about it. It looked pretty cool. And at the end of a process of negotiation, the ISP, as I understand it, they may have a different characterization. I think they kind of walked away because they're like, look, like, this looks to us like we would be taking on more risk, and we don't need to do that. We're a successful ISP. What we're doing works. And sure, it would be nice if we could expand our services rapidly to a lot more people throughout Santa Cruz. But we're fine doing the way we are. And I don't want to be missing out on those ISPs. I feel like in many ways, those ISPs are the ones we want to figure out how to get them to expand. And I worry that these rules will make it so that just Charter and the companies like Starlink and others, where it'll be extremely high cost as designated by the states, will be more attractive rather than cooperatives and the local entities. And so that's what it comes down to, because I feel like you have an attitude that I've heard before, which is sort of like, we're setting a high bar. This is really important. And I feel like it might be that high bar is actually leading us to like lower performing operators because they can put teams together that will figure out how to manage these processes.
I heard two things there. I heard you say...
A lot of wah, wah, wah.
I heard you say it's okay to have less than stellar, if you will, infrastructure if it allows for more entry. Is that basically what you're saying?
I think I was sort of getting a little bit off point. My point is that states are going to determine where the areas are extremely high cost. And we're going to have even more ISPs competing there. And like Starlink's going to be great at a lot of this stuff, I think, in order to be competitive.
Sure.
And they're not going to have to worry about climate resiliency, which is a major benefit for them. In fact, that's one of the reasons I love low Earth orbits.
Actually, they might, because there's a question of what happens if someone loses their equipment on the receiving end. Mm-hmm. So how are they planning to fix that, and are they going to make the user pay for that, or is that an insurance thing? Those are like what, $400 or $500 pieces. They
charge like $550, but it's like $1,000 to manufacture. So
that's what I think that's in my mind where the discussion would be if they're applying for those sorts of things in regards to climate resilience planning.
But let me ask them more. Let me distill my wandering down to. I'm afraid that even as we try to do due diligence, it would be better if you just let me pick the ISPs that were the best to get the money.
I disagree. I think the process is designed to be rigorous on purpose. It's about being good stewards of our tax dollars, everybody's tax dollars, not just those who want something or those who don't want something. I understand your point of view, and I absolutely get where you're coming from with that question, but I don't know that that it will shake out like that at all. I think that this process is designed to be rigorous on purpose, and each state will have their own idea about how to implement this as well. So.
If we weren't going to lose our clean tag, I would suggest that you're about to quote The Big Lebowski with, "You're not wrong, Walter. You're just..."
It is the rug that ties the room together.
So let's talk a little bit about the fun stuff that you've seen and interesting projects that you've worked on. Let me start by just asking you about states. You've worked, and I'm sure in the process of working with a few states, you've observed a ton of states.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the best things you've seen states doing in order to improve broadband? Not necessarily just related to all this federal money, but what are some of the best practices you've seen in states? For people who aren't here in the room watching, I didn't give Heather any warning about this deep question, so she is staring off into the middle distance, pondering right now.
Can you be more specific?
So from an infrastructure point of view, I felt like Minnesota was a real leader 8 years ago. And since then has really lost its footing. And what are some of the best practices that you're seeing from states to make sure that they're wisely spending infrastructure dollars, getting it out there in these high cost areas?
They're trying to hire the right people. And that's really challenging right now because everybody wants to hire a broadband specialist.
I just got an email asking me to promote some jobs.
Oh, you really? That's great. So people who understand the industry, really understand the industry, are, I would say, mostly here, few and far between, right? And that, for me, is the first best step that they could take and that they have been taking. And a number of states are really trying to find good, qualified people. And that's not necessarily an easy political appointment or and what you're also seeing is the federal government hiring for the same reason. I think NTIA is got a very great plan to hire somebody for each state that will be the liaison. That's challenging. That's 50 people from our industry working for the NTIA doing good work, but that means that that's 50 less people.
Yeah, I can't name 50 people that are immediately the ones that you go to for this sort of work.
And the size of broadband offices, I think this was on your panel the other day, you guys were talking about most broadband offices have 2 people in them.
Right, yeah. Well, South office has 3.
Maybe 3. Right. Yeah, that's challenging. So again, there's only so many people out there that understand really the mechanics of all of this and are able to navigate as well the political atmosphere that they're finding themselves in as well. That's a whole other level of challenge.
If I had to guess right now, I bet half of the states are probably hiring their head broadband person in some sort of process right now.
I think that's probably about right. And it's going to take them some time. And quite frankly, it should take them some time. If you're being rigorous, which most states are, in their hiring process, then they're taking the time to do it well.
I should say one of the things that we didn't talk about was the issue that's not related to NTIA, which is that the federal government is taxing these awards. But we just got a note this morning for anyone who's listening to this show. Talk to your senators, because some senators are expressing surprise and shock when this is brought up by people who are not insiders that have been telling them for years.
Yeah.
And so there may be a movement in the Senate to fix that And so talking to your senators about the absurdity of taxing these broadband grant awards is a good practice. But this reminds me then of California, right? So California is paying 100% of the infrastructure costs. They've been doing this for a while from their KSEF fund. And I've thought that was not well advised, is how I would put it gently. On the other hand, I feel like when I hear people defending it, they're like, well, they can put a lot of restrictions in on the network and say you have to offer a $40 a month plan and things like that. Do you have any like immediate reaction to whether states should pay 100% of the costs?
I don't. I will say to pivot back to the NTIA programs that are out there right now, the emphasis is on making sure that the applicants who are asking for money are putting in, I don't want to say their fair share, but they're putting in money as well. This is
skin in the game. That's what I think. I think that's the best practice.
They need to have skin in the game, and with the middle mile program in particular, I want to say that they're looking to they want a shovel ready project, and I think there's various levels of shovel ready project, by the way, but they really want to see projects that are well thought out, well planned, and ready to get going. Just to make sure that they're getting as much bang for their buck as quickly as possible, because we're running against a time clock now. Mm-hmm. Time clock being the FCC's maps, because we know as soon as those are released, and that that's not going to be immediately, mm-hmm. but as soon as those are released, that starts another time clock for the BEAD funding. That's the implementation piece of it, right? So getting these middle mile projects underway as soon as possible is mm-hmm. only going to benefit the BEAD effort and the digital equity effort down the road.
I feel like that phrase, when the FCC maps are released, is our generation's when the Messiah returns.
Sure.
Next year in Jerusalem, sort of.
Sure.
Maybe when that happens.
Yeah.
What other? So getting away from states to more like local projects. Are there things that you've seen that just really inspire you and make you excited and think, I really want to share this on a podcast with Chris Mitchell? Oh, yeah.
I think I mentioned to you the other day, Scott County, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited for the opportunity that they created. I think we began working with them in October of 2020, before we had any indication of ARPA funds and things like that. Mm-hmm. And they were largely passed over in regards to RDOF awards. I think there were one or two places where there was an RDOF award. They're, I want to say, a northern bedroom community, if you will, of I'm going to get it wrong, the Lexington area. It's not very far, and it's a really lovely place. I would love to have another entire life there and mm-hmm. just live in and around Georgetown, Kentucky. It's a great.
I'm going to guess petting horses and things like that.
Well,
there's got to be a few around.
There's just all the people there are good people. I can't, you can see it on my face. Mm-hmm. I've got a big smile. I really love this place. Mm-hmm. And I felt really lucky to work with the team there. Judge Covington is one of the best human beings I think I've ever met. And
judge being the Kentucky term for county administrator type person?
Judge executive is what they call that, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so he had a goal to find a way to get broadband ubiquitously throughout the county, because it is largely unserved. Mm-hmm. And so we looked at what the options were, and we said, hey, you guys aren't interested in owning and operating the infrastructure. You're interested in a public-private partnership. We can explore what those options are with you. And so they issued an RFI, a request for information, to see who was interested. And mm-hmm. it turned out there was a good amount of interest. As such, they immediately turned around and said, let's do this, an RFP, request for proposals, and see where that gets us. And at that point, we knew that the NTIA was going to have the BIP program, the Broadband Infrastructure Program, which was the one time, there's $1 billion in that one, right? I can't remember entirely.
I thought that maybe that was was it the partnership one that was $300 million? Was that a different one?
That's a different one.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Anyway,
okay.
I just know there was a lot of money
available.
There.
Right.
It's so far in the past. I can't believe how long ago it was now. And so the goal was to find a partner, and then the county was able to, the partner that they chose, they had ARPA funds available to write the check. But the deal that they structured gave them time to figure out other options as well. And so they want to be good stewards of their tax dollars. They wanted to be able to use those funds for other ARPA allowed things if possible. So we worked with the partner to put in a grant application. They were one of the few, the 13 or 14 winners of one of the BIP grant awards. And they didn't ask for much. But what was appealing, I think, about that particular project was the partner that they chose, the amount of money the partner was putting in, was basically like 85% of the project. So what we were looking for was the gap funding, if you will, that the county needed to put in. And then they won the BIP award. And I can't tell you, I think I cried that day. I was so happy for that. And it has everything to do with the people and the team and the rigorous way in which they approached it.
Well, that's what I wanted to jump in on for a second, because if I'm not mangling my stories, this is one where you did greater due diligence in preparing the RFP so that bidders would have a much better sense of what they were getting into, so they'd be able to offer more accurate bids.
Absolutely. So one of the biggest barriers that we have found over the years to getting partners interested is helping them sharpen their pencils. One of the things that we did was we sent a team out into the county. They rode up and down every road. And our outside plant team is very knowledgeable. They can, eyeball what is there and what is not there and put that into GIS. And we provided the bidders with a copy of that. It was like a KMZ or something, a file. And it had, basic information in there. The feedback that we got from the bidders was that was absolutely something that helped them understand. And at that point, the county knew what was there and wasn't there.
Right.
And that was really key to moving the ball down the field, if you will, to getting this, even the grant application pulled together in the way that it was, because we had numbers. We knew where there was service and wasn't service, and what level of service. So what type, if it was DSL or if it was underground and we knew it was underground, that sort of thing. So it was very helpful to them in getting that done. Yeah.
And just for a ballpark figure, I'm going to guess that, if you sort of estimated a bid to not do that versus doing something that included that, it's probably a difference of tens of thousands of dollars, like from the point of view of what they're paying a consultant, and maybe 100,000.
No,
okay,
definitely not that much.
So I just want to get the sense that like this is one of those things where when you're putting together, when you're a city trying to find a consultant, and you're like, maybe we could save $30,000 or $40,000 here. Like those tens of thousands of dollars, if spent well, can result in
millions
in benefits, just in terms of a better process and more rapid deployment and all that.
And just that's no guarantee of that, but it is certainly the
Heather Mills says
thing.
that you will definitely
caveat.
Katie Aspeth just walked by.
It is something that you should be cognizant of. Is what are the ultimate benefits? What is your ultimate goal? And if the goal is to be able to apply for grants that could garner the funding to do this, then it might be worth it. But that's not my decision. That is the decision of the locality, and it's a discussion that they need to have.
But they need to be informed on this.
They need to be informed, and they need to ask questions about like, what is the benefit of this? What exactly are they doing?
Right.
Why don't we already have this information? That sort of thing. And in some cases, this sort of goes back to there's software out there that helps you document where your infrastructure is. And so prior to that kind of software being available, it was somebody's brain, somebody who may have recently retired.
Yes, often.
And so they just don't know where that stuff is anymore. And
not just for public entities, private entities. This is a very common.
It's a very common problem. And so, we're seeing that problem less and less, but it's still something we're going to have to deal with, especially for the more rural areas that, don't necessarily know what's there and what's not there. For sure.
Wonderful. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
We have transcripts for this and other podcasts available at muninetworks.org/broadbandbits. Email us at podcast@muninetworks.org with your ideas for the show. Follow Chris on Twitter. His handle is @CommunityNets. Follow muninetworks.org stories on Twitter. The handle's @muninetworks. Subscribe to this and other podcasts from ILSR, including Building Local Power, Local Energy Rules, and the Composting for Community podcast. You can access them anywhere you get your podcasts. You can catch the latest important research from all of our initiatives if you subscribe to our monthly newsletter at ilsr.org. While you're there, please take a moment to donate. Your support in any amount keeps us going. Thank you to Arnie Hughesby for the song Warm Duck Shuffle, licensed through Creative Commons. This was the Community Broadband Bits podcast. Thanks for listening.